Going through the legal system is, well, it's just incredibly stressful and honestly pretty overwhelming. So if you've got a meeting coming up with a prosecutor, you're probably feeling all sorts of things right now. Anxious, uncertain, maybe a little scared. The whole point of this explainer is to give you a clear, simple roadmap for that meeting, so you can walk in feeling a little more prepared and a lot more empowered. So we're going to break this all down into 4 main parts. First up, we'll talk about what you can do before you even walk in the door. Then we'll get into what the meeting will actually look and feel like. After that, we'll cover how you can find your voice and ask the right questions. And finally, we'll look at what to expect on the long road ahead. So much of this process can feel like it's out of your hands. But preparation, that's about taking back a little bit of control. So let's start with what the prosecutor already has and, maybe more importantly, what crucial information only you can bring to the table. Okay, so think of it this way. The prosecutor starts with the official case file. That's got the police report, whatever evidence was collected, witness statements. It's the what of the case. But your job, your role, is to provide the context, the nuance, the personal impact. You bring the how and the why that just don't show up in those official documents. You are the human element here, and that is so, so important. So before the meeting, try to give yourself a little space to think about 2 key things. First, what are your goals? What does justice or accountability actually look like for you? Maybe it's a conviction, maybe it's a specific sentence, or maybe it's just making sure your story is heard completely. Knowing what you want is incredibly powerful. And second, think about if there's anything, and I mean anything, no matter how small it seems, that you haven't shared yet. This is your chance. All right, let's pull back the curtain on the meeting itself. Just knowing the general flow of how things will go can really help lower that anxiety. No one likes being caught off guard, right? So let's make sure there are fewer surprises. To really get what the prosecutor is thinking, you have to understand this one key concept: the burden of proof. This is a really high legal bar to clear. They're not just looking for some evidence. They need to figure out if they have enough solid evidence to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt to a jury. That whole perspective is going to shape every single question they ask you. So the meeting itself, it usually follows a pretty straightforward path. It'll start with some introductions. The prosecutor will explain what their job is. Then they're going to ask you some specific questions to clarify things from the report. After that, the floor is yours to share your side of things and any new info. And finally, they'll give you a sense of what the next steps in the process will be. Now, this is really, really important to know going in. You have to manage your expectations. The whole point of this first meeting is for them to gather information. It is not for them to make a final decision. You will almost certainly not leave that room knowing if they're filing charges. Knowing that up front can save you a whole lot of frustration and disappointment. Okay, let's talk about one of the most vital parts of this whole thing: your questions. This is not a one-way street, This is your chance to get some clarity and to really be an active participant in your own case. I want you to adopt this mindset seriously. Don't just sit there passively. Be bold. You have every right to understand what's happening. If you hear some legal jargon you don't get or you're confused about what happens next, just ask. This is your life, and your voice truly, truly matters. So while it's important to be bold and ask questions, it's also good to know that the prosecutor just won't have all the answers yet. You can definitely get clear answers on questions about the process, like what are the possible next steps, or about communication. But for questions about the outcome, like are we going to win, it's just way too early to know. But still, never ever hesitate to ask for clarification if something's fuzzy. So the meeting's over. What now? Let's talk about what happens next, about navigating the road ahead, setting up clear communication, and most importantly, taking care of yourself through it all. Let's just be really honest here. The legal process is a marathon, not a sprint. It can take a long, long time, and it's going to be filled with uncertainty. Mentally preparing yourself for a long haul, instead of hoping for a quick fix, is probably one of the kindest things you can do for your own mental health. A fantastic way to deal with all that uncertainty is to set up a communication plan. Before you leave that meeting, ask, what's the best way to stay in touch? Do you prefer an email or a phone call? Who specifically is your go-to person if you have a question? And how often do you want to hear from them? Only when something big happens, or maybe on a more regular schedule? Getting this stuff sorted out creates a clear line of communication and really cuts down on the anxiety of just sitting and waiting. So we've covered a lot.
preparing for the meeting, what happens inside, and what comes next. But all of it, every single bit, sits on top of the one thing that has to be your number one priority through this whole journey. Your well-being is everything. This process is absolutely draining, emotionally, mentally, physically. You have to have a plan for how you're going to take care of yourself. Whether that's therapy, support groups, exercise, time with people you love, whatever it is, make it a priority. You can't pour from an empty cup, and believe me, this journey is going to ask a lot of you.
And that really brings it all back to you and what you can control right here, right now. So ask yourself this. With this long, uncertain road ahead, what is just one small thing you can do for yourself this week? Finding that answer, that's the first and most important step you can take.